Good evening and welcome to Opinion Court. I'm Udwa Kamimo. The National Assembly went on recess today, but not before considering some very important matters. The bills on electoral reforms drafted by a joint select committee passed without any changes. And so the clause on party hopping, which was deleted last week, was reinstated. And Harambees were the subject of vigorous debate this afternoon. Members of Parliament were considering the Public Fundraising Appeals Act of 2014, which the Senate passed last year to regulate public donations, or Harambees. Its key proposals are licenses for fundraising, committees at both levels of government to vet and process applications for those licenses, and accounting for publicly raised funds. The debate has been postponed, so there's still time to voice your opinions to your lawmakers. So what do you think? Should Harambees be regulated? Do we need government committees to vet them? SMS us on 22422 or tweet us using the hashtag Opinion Court, which is all one word. So I'll introduce today's guests. We have Abdikadir Aden, the ODM MP for Balambala. He supports the bill. And opposing the bill is Johanna Ngeno, the Emurua Dikir MP from the Kenya National Congress. We also have with us, as always, Opinion Court's resident political analyst, Professor Edward Kisiangani. Good evening, gentlemen, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so, of course, we'll start with the electoral reforms bills, because given all the furore about party hopping, and Mr. Ngeno, you were very vocal about this, both sides of the political divide seemed quite disciplined in the adoption of the bills, except for you. You were the lone voice this afternoon.
Unfortunately. Well, I was not the lone voice. The only problem was that most of the voices were silent, and they didn't want to be known.
Silent or silenced?
They were silent because they were silenced. And I would say this because, you know, today was very unfortunate, by the way. The part which deals with party hopping was not even meant to be there in the first place, because the negotiated document was only meant to cure the problem which people go through during the real election. This part of party hopping was not part of that. It was only sneaked in when some people thought this is the best opportunity to have it in. But most of the members had disagreed with it.
When there was a committee and
because it was not part of the recommendation, which actually it was not part of
the report. It was part of the recommendation.
True, it was sneaked to the report. But you see, the committee, the select committee, when it was given the mandate to look, it was meant to look into the issues that can bring harmony in the electoral reforms. But this is a party issue, which was not actually part of the problem. And I would say most of the members had agreed that this part of this bill should be removed because it was offensive. But later on, when all the members were whipped, except some of us who actually would say we do not have godfathers, or these big chiefs in political parties were not whipped, and we wanted to help most of the members who we thought may go through serious problems during nominations. And the most unfortunate thing was that major discussions were on the end product, that is, what will happen during nominations. It was not, and I would have wished we should have discussed majorly on what are the structures that the parties put in place to ensure nobody will hope, or nobody would even think of moving out of it. That would have been the most fundamental part of the discussion.
So, Mr. Aden, Mr. Ngeno was trying to help those of you who might not have political parties to vie in, you know, once nominations take place, but you were silent because you were silenced, he says.
I think I beg to differ. I think overall the bill was good. The issue of party hopping, I think the concern comes in because the political parties that we have in Kenya today, many of them unfortunately do not have very well established, transparent structures that manage nomination processes, and that's where the concern comes from. But this bill, passage of this bill, now sends and gives us a challenge as members of the political parties to now go and reform our parties, revamp our parties, make them transparent organization and entities whereby people walk in, offer themselves to the wananchi for nominations, and you have nothing to worry about. You are elected or given the vote by the wananchi, and you do it. I think this bill actually will eventually lift Kenyans to the level of the developed countries that we see that have very few parties.
Aren't you required to say that? The name of your principal kept coming up this afternoon.
Not at all. Not at all. I very strongly. First of all, let me say that my party, ODM, is probably the only party now so far that has at least established structures that are in place. Others are from the scratch and beginning now. We've had a lot of challenges in the past, I must admit, but I can assure you, I can assure you that those are the issues that we have come along, and I welcome my good friend Mheshimiwa Ngeno. Don't feel offered. Come to ODM, the largest party in the country, and we will be assured of very open, very transparent nomination processes which you will not have to worry about.
So what can we expect now, as we wind up this, moving on to Harambees, what can we expect now that the bills have passed? Both houses, you now send them up to the president.
Yeah, I think what we expect now is to see a lot more discipline in the parties. Members will now start to toe the line. There are members in a political party who for example, will not meet their obligations of the constitution of the parties. For example, paying up their monthly subscriptions to the party. And now they will write the checks for their arrears as quickly as possible and ensure that they're in good books with their party, and ensure that there's and also I believe now engaged members like myself, this is now an opportunity to say that this is an opportunity for us as a party to attract the very resourceful, the very best of the best, by ensuring that we put in place transparent processes, and therefore it gives us an opportunity to improve the processes that we.
So we come now to the issue of Harambees. You know, because Mr. Ngeno, you wanted to talk, but I'll ask you to comment on Harambees, because you are against this bill which seeks to regulate public fundraising. Why?
You know, the art of giving actually is not. It is not something that you can regulate, because it is not something you call. It is not bribing. It is not something that you would say. How do you give? It is even in the Bible. It has been there since time immemorial that when there is somebody who doesn't have and you have, you share. That art of giving has been there since time immemorial.
But doesn't it perpetuate a culture of dependency, of handouts, of begging?
Yeah, whichever name you call it, whichever situation you call it, it is there the world over. You cannot just say it is only in Kenya. It is in churches. It is outside churches. Like when you go to church, you have to give. It's an offering. That one is also meant to cater for some few needs here and there. It is only that when you call it a harambe, you call it a harambe because maybe the few people who you expected to come and help you may not have enough to help you. Then you gather, you call as many people as possible to come and give. And let me say this: the issue of harambe in Kenya has okay, I would say that there are so many situations where people call for harambes, which would not have been so if the system has been abused. Yes, if there was a kind of structures in place that would cater for the needs of the people, like healthcare. If there was a good healthcare in this country, actually I wouldn't think so many people would call for harambe. If there also proper, like we would call it, if the free primary and free day secondary education was actually taken to the secondary and even the university level, not so many people will be calling for harambes. But simply because we do not have incentives that will take care of the needs of the people, then
the state isn't quite effective.
We are left, it is ineffective, and therefore we are left with the only means which are there, including bursaries, but bursaries are not enough. So people will resort to calling for other people to come and fundraise for them and help them meet maybe medical bills, education fees, and all that. So when we say it, when we illegalize it, or when we demand for a license, we criminalize it, or we tell people to seek for a license, it's like we are taking us back to those days when whenever you wanted to hold a meeting, you need to have a chief's consent. You get a license to hold a meeting.
Mr. Aiden, you support this bill.
Yeah.
Why? Because as Mr. Ngeno here says, you seem to be supporting the criminalization of giving.
Not at all. Actually, the more you read this bill, the more, and the better you understand it, you realize that now, with this law in place, it is now a lot more easier, a lot more, let's say, transparent to do harambes. Let's put it this way, and I want to say that this will just create a framework of how harambes should happen. But just to manage your concerns. This bill does not limit Harambees in churches and mosques. It doesn't. So if you are a generous from the heart, like you quoted the Bible and I quote the Quran, and I want to give in the mosques and the churches and those institutions of registered institutions of religious institutions, you can give. It doesn't also limit fundraising within a family. Today I listened to you saying, you know, how a neighbor had to cut a tree to finance your education, and you know, now it doesn't limit. It doesn't limit that. So people who are close to you, this bill also says they are exempted for doing that kind of Harambees for you. So after all, this bill is by and large just to create that framework. Let me say that I believe in the principle of sustainable management of our resources, sustainable, you know, living within our means. Let me put it that way. I don't like Harambees because what you said, Mheshimiwa, is what I said earlier today in Parliament, that as a country we need to think about universal health care, universal free education, all the way to secondary and universities. A lot of these issues will be limited. There will be no need for Harambees, and I want to say that this framework brings a lot of transparency into this.
Prof, let me bring you in, because helping each other is part of our culture. We've just heard about the example of the neighbor cutting down his tree so that Mr. Yeno could be where he is today, sitting with us and discussing these important issues. It's enshrined in our flag and the, you know, pledge. Are we not attempting to interfere with our cultural value system, our cultural heritage and philosophy?
Far from it. I think the bill is timely because even the same values that we say probably are being protected have actually been abused by people who want to misuse the public. I think the spirit of the bill is correct, but I don't know whether it takes too much. I think from the constitutional perspective, under Article 36, people have a right to associate and even talk about what they want. But if you look at this bill, it has very good positive things. It is trying to inject some order in the way people contribute money. I remember one time a friend of mine asked for me to ask him to make a contribution over some money that he was taking a child to learn. The next thing I saw, the child was somewhere else doing something else, and we never even knew. We didn't go back to him to ask, well, you asked for us to give you money, and now the child doesn't seem to have gone to school. So we kept quiet, but that is one case. So
because of course what you're getting at there, that this bill asks for accountability for money it's raised.
And what it's raising is part of our national values under Article 10, that we need some transparency and accountability when we take on resources. We shouldn't ask for too much that when the cost for which we're asking for money probably requires less. But what I raise here is that I think it is good that the bill hasn't been deliberated on, and I was extremely disappointed when Senate passed it without considering a number of things. Uduak, when you look at the ongoing interviews of CJ, one of the candidates said they didn't know anything about Facebook and even Twitter, and now people have started doing Twitter, they are doing Facebook. If you take up a public post that you don't know that, it's a big challenge for you. Probably.
How does that tie in with Harambees?
So it ties with the Harambees because I don't see where, because there's even Article 3, Article 19, 18, 19 talking about the conditions, the place. The place for contributing money through Harambe has become virtual. Yeah. So the technological part of this bill, what this bill shows that our parliament is technologically challenged when it is doing bills, and it needs to have somebody to second them. The place, people today can meet and still contribute money without having a place. And even, you know, so how do you regulate that as parliament? I think it is important for you as parliamentarians to have an input to see the extent to which you can conduct. Then you have also defined what you call public and private. How public can it be, how private it, and you talk about family.
So let's just stop there because of what you're saying. So let's make sure we don't lose the points.
Yes.
So you have a takeaway for your third reading when you come back from
yes.
this. which is that there needs to be some sort of technological legislation governing how we raise these funds.
Correct.
And Prof, you are coming to an area that the bill defines that public money should be raised for public good.
Yes.
How are we defining that public good? Is Mr. Ngeno needing to go to school public good?
Yeah, I think, first of all, let me say, Prof, I agree with you very much. And it's good that you are bringing in these ideas at the right stage. Actually, the bill is still within its second reading, so even debate on the floor of the House is still on. I agree with you very much. Public good is, in my view, defined in anything that is, you know, that is in the interest of a given citizen of this country, a mwananchi, for example, meaning that we are raising that money not for any other thing but to support and help a person who is needy. That is, in my view, is the definition of public good. I want to say, Prof, what you have said. The reason why I think this bill is very, very progressive, one of the other reasons is that identifying source of money. Prof, you know, Kenyans know how much I earn. Kenyans know how much I earn. And then you see me every weekend out there contributing 1 million shillings.
Yeah.
Every weekend. Every weekend. Where is that money coming from? You know, this is the thing that we need to ask about. This bill says if Abdikadir contributes money, 1 million shilling this weekend, I must show that in my tax returns.
Yeah.
Okay? So, during the year then, and it will be known, remember, the person who's also doing the returns from that Harambe is also expected to return that record to the taxman. So really this bill brings in a lot of issues. There is the issue of MPs and MCAs not allowed, and I know that's where many of my colleagues had a problem with. It's an area where we need to probably amend, okay? Because we are also part of the public, as long as our contribution is within the reasonable amounts of the monies that we earn. I see no problem at all
I think you are right.
Mr. come in, yes?
Yeah.
I think myself, I think there are two worries which most of the members actually kind of raised in the House, and I kind of agreed with it to some extent, but I disagreed with some of them. One, most of the members are complaining that where will I be getting money to be going around, and maybe my competitors have money, and of course their worries was that these Harambees are used as campaigning tools, which is not a genuine worry. Number two,
why isn't it genuine?
It is not, because if you have,
if you've been doing your work,
if you have and you can contribute, that should not be a disadvantage to somebody who doesn't have. You can do something else. You can make your contribution elsewhere, not necessarily in form of money. Secondly, and which was genuine, was the source of money. So I think what we should be actually concentrating on is that any public officer or a state officer who contributes a certain amount of money, the source of that money should be investigated. Not the person who has been contributed to should account, because that is not the moment you contribute to me, you make a contribution. It will be upon me to use it the way I think as per my needs. I will give this example. I will give this example.
I'll
give this example.
Sorry, we're talking over each other.
I'm giving this example. Like when there is a disaster in a country, for example, not even in a village, in a country, countries normally contribute, and nobody will care how that money is used. It is upon those people who had that disaster. So suppose we say, you know, we are using that name Harambe, but it is just contribution. It is usually done on when there are disasters. It's usually done when there are problems.
So the point I just wanted to inform you is that actually the bill requires me, as Abdikadir, if I contribute 1 million shilling, I must declare the source of my money.
Which is still good.
So don't fear your competitor.
You should not anchor into the Harambe.
Don't fear your competitor.
I don't think he's afraid of the competitor. In fact, he has made a point.
No, I agree with his point. But the concern he has about the competitor.
No, I said members will concerned
on that matter. I think Parliament can still deal with that, because
how so?
Because the point is, I have seen some disasters have occurred in some counties in this country. Maybe there's a fire, there's a bad accident. Then the governors appear there and say they have contributed. They come with 1 million, they come with blankets. Then you see, they tell people that this is what I've brought. They don't say this is what the county government is giving.
Yeah.
And in the end, they get a lot of political mileage out of that, and they will use that in the campaign. So therefore, what the MP is talking about is important. It's important to say the money I'm bringing, even in terms of declaration, is not my money. I have brought 1 million, but I've added 100,000, which is my money in my pocket. But I think I wanted also to point out something quickly again about the way Senate, Parliament would look like this, because Senate failed miserably to look at some dark areas. The area, for example, public good could be somebody wants an urgent operation in a hospital, and makes an appeal. If you look at Article, I think 18 or 19 of this document, it says that you need 21 days to do what? To do an application. Now, if a guy is already completely sick and the hospital needs money to carry out a certain operation, how do you wait for the licensing to take place to call for a Harambe? And you might be calling for a Harambe from people who are not even your relatives, and they are willing to contribute, but there is no license. This kind of thing should be looked at with an open heart and even mind by Parliament, and see what to do about it. But generally speaking, it is the right thing to do to make sure that some order is put in this process.
Then how do you address the issue which came up in the National Assembly this afternoon, that it passed in the Senate because people in the Senate are generally much more comfortable than the rest of Kenya, that it's an elitist bill which locks out the majority of Kenyans who have no access to some of the things the rest of us take for granted, and so to some people this is some measure of redistribution of wealth.
I would say this myself. I would have wished this bill to have been initiated outside even Parliament, maybe somebody bring it as a petition or something like that, outside Parliament. But you see, when you look at it, it is initiated actually inside Parliament. And that is why I said the major worry for most of the members, either senators or MPs, is that somebody somewhere who has some good money is using that opportunity to finish us, which should not be the case. Me, myself, I would have said, let us interrogate or investigate. If it was meant to be a Harambe bill, let us look backwards, not forward. Let's interrogate where these people are getting this money. If it is a governor, where does he get the money? If it is an MP, where does he get the money? So that we account for the source of the money, not where the money goes.
I think, I want to say that generally this is a bill that must be looked at in good faith, because it wants, the intention here is, by the way, to manage solicited fundraising. Prof, I can wake up tomorrow and decide to go and donate 10,000 shillings to my local mosque. Or I identify a needy student and go and pay. That is not solicited for. I have not been asked to pay. I can pay those amounts of money. So this bill really is only talking of those very funny people who we have seen raising, in the name of raising funds for that child you talked about. And then you find that child walking around on the streets, is not going to school, yet you have contributed. This is what this says. Actually, the bill says within 10 days of your application, you must get the approval within 10 days. That's what the bill says. And it is supposed to be in every village. Where I agree with you is that the practicability of implementation of this bill might actually be where the challenge comes from. Are we prepared to have structures all the way to the village? How is it going to be? How will those committees, county committees, work all the way to the village level? There are serious issues for us to ask ourselves. I think that is where now we still have, the bill is before us. Even members of the public still have an opportunity, even now, to enrich this bill now and bring in the ideas, the good ones that you have mentioned here now, and we bring them in, and it goes back to as a mediation.
You say our country has,
and this is your final thought.
Our country has a problem with the money. In fact, if you look at out of the scale of 1 to 10, most of the people of Kenya live a dishonest life, and the money they have is not good money. It is bad. It's acquired in a wrong way. So it's up to the state, because the state organs are supposed to have that delegated responsibility from the people to relook at this matter and make sure that when money is being used to certain project, it's good money, it's acquired faithfully, and therefore when it's applied, nobody is ashamed about it. So let people not look at it as a negative thing. I think we needed to go there a long time ago, and people should not use the state resources to pursue political interests and then claim that is their own. And even if you are a local person, you are in a church, you shouldn't use public money to pursue, in fact, to build your popularity. So these kind of things require our attention. And let's always remember that this bill should quote, when you go back to Parliament, it must say one thing, that at the preamble, it must mention it is dealing with national values of good governance. I haven't seen that.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And so that's where we'll have to leave opinion court for this evening. The conversation, of course, will continue when you reconvene in Parliament in October, but also on social media and other channels. I'll thank everyone we've had talking this evening. We've had the MP for Balambala, Abdikadir Aden. We've also had with us the MP from Emurua Dikir, Johanna Ngeno, and of course from the Kenya National Congress, one of two in the National Assembly, and as well as resident analyst Professor